Hello, thank you so much for your time.
You bet. You
Yeah.
bet. Nice to meet you.
So I really enjoyed your book, The Guinea Dog. It feels like, like when I started reading it, I couldn't stop reading it. This is actually like, I don't remember when I got it, but I've just had it like forever. And I've just like whenever I'm bored on days, like I just read this book and read it and read it, and I don't know how many times I've read it, but it's like one of my all-time favorites, and like for me, it's like a classic.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you. I'm glad you had fun with it.
So can you start by introducing yourself, telling us a bit about your background, and what inspired you to become a writer?
Sure. Okay, what's important about me? When I was a kid, I was a kid. That's really important. And I didn't have any pets. I had no pets. And that went on throughout my whole childhood. And then finally, when I was an adult, I went, hey, I can have a pet. So I
Yeah.
got a dog. And then the dog died. Yes, just a few months later, he had parvovirus and he died. I know this is one of those dead dog stories. I'm very sorry. And but then I came back to the United States. I was living in Mexico at that time. It was a Mexican dog, and I came back to the United States and wrote a book about him. It was my first book, and it got published. And it's this one right here. It's called Faith and the Electric Dogs, and
Hello?
this is what I looked like. It was 1996.
Wow, you look like you're a teenager, sort of.
I did. I was sort of a teenager. I was like 32,
Oh,
and so that's really the story. That's like I was teaching preschool in Mexico. I was teaching preschool in San Francisco. I loved working with kids. I loved books, so I became a children's book writer. And I've been
mm-hmm.
happily ever after.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly. I think you should like write like a mini rhyme or something about that. That
Oh, good.
sounds
That sounds like
interesting.
a great idea. I'll write it for you and I'll send it to you.
Thank you. So what inspired you to write Guinea Dog? Because
Yeah.
it feels like it came from like the inner mind and soul and spirit, and it seems very like it seems like this is a real person talking to me. It's very realistic.
Rufus, you like Rufus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do get Rufus pretty well. I've written a lot of characters over the year, but I have to say Rufus, I get him. I get him.
Yeah.
And I think part of it's because he really wanted a dog, right? And I really
Yeah.
wanted a dog. I spent my
Yeah, you
whole
can relate to
childhood
him.
like begging for a dog, my whole childhood. Mom, please, please, please. I never got a dog. So I really understand his sort of desperation. And
Yeah.
so what happened though was after my dog died and I started it and I wrote the book, a neighbor said, hey, I've got this cat that keeps hanging around my house. Do you like cats? And I said, oh, no, no, I like dogs. And she said, oh, but it just needs a home so much. And I went, oh, okay. Because I wasn't ready to get another dog yet. So I got a cat and it acted like a dog. It would like run to the door when somebody would knock, and it would jump up on you. And it
Yeah.
would even play like a little, like a version of fetch. I would throw something and he'd go get it. And so I went, that's a good idea. I like this idea of this kid
Yeah.
who wants a dog so much, and then he gets a cat and it acts like a dog. And is
Yeah.
that
I
okay?
do that normally, so that's a very rare cat. And is that the cat in the background?
No, no, no. That was Subi, and that was in like I don't know, 1999 or something like that. Oh,
Uh,
bang. This is Subi, upside down. This is Subi. That's Subi.
he
She
looks
was a Himalayan. She was a Himalayan. And
oh,
so
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I based the story on them. I have two more cats now, yes, running around. I like to leave the door open so my animals can come in and out.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of animals. If you've read my books, you probably know. So
Yeah.
they have run of the house.
Yeah, because like in all like those stories and like stories, there's usually like a cat darting around the legs or something. And I feel like it's just really like to relate to what you said, it's really natural to just have a cat around the house.
Do
I've
you have
always wanted I've
do you have
always
pets?
wanted a cat, but I've always wanted a pet in like total, like a goldfish or even a hamster, like a guinea
Mhm.
pig, like in this book. But I've never got one, and my hopes of getting a dog are like not happening because I'm also allergic to dogs.
Oh, that's hard. I'm sorry. I just got my first dog again this year after the death of my first dog, Edison, and it's been 30 years.
Oh
So
wow.
it's my first. It's really my first dog, and you know what? He is not sick. He's not. I don't think he's gonna die.
Well, I mean, like
He's
actually,
in there.
like dogs live for like a really long time because my grandma's dog died last year, but like he was like well, if you convert it into dog years, he was 70.
Whoa, that's old.
But if you don't convert it into dog years, he was 7.
Or seven, right? Wait, no, 10. 10 or
Oh
seven?
yeah, 10, 10 to 7.
10. Yeah, yeah. Can you see my cat back there?
Yeah,
Sitting on the chair. That's my other cat. Yeah, he
yeah.
actually.
Like the way its ears move, you can hardly tell that it's not a statue. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I feel
happy
like cats
having
have a
that.
good manner, just like choosing a place to sit and just sitting there and then just watching the world go by. Like your
I
own
know.
little mini security camera.
I think that one of the reasons that I loved animals is because I always really wanted to understand what they were thinking. I was really like, I was very fascinated with that. I wanted to know what animals thought. I thought about it all the time. And so I have written stories about like what a cat thinks, what a dog thinks, what a snake thinks. I've written a book about. And so I'm always thinking about it. And actually, I just got chickens 2 years
Oh,
ago. I now have 7 chickens right out there. And so I just love having them all around and just always thinking like,
yeah,
what are they thinking? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? I think that's how
yeah,
I became a writer because it's
that's
empathy, right? It's empathy. Like
awesome.
you're trying to imagine being somebody else.
Just that little imagination bubble. And then when the like while you're in the writing process, that imagination bubble goes, whoa. And that's just a small bubble now.
I'm trying to imagine being you right now because I've watched some of your videos and I just think, wow, what a mind. How does she think she's so funny and she's so quick and she's so intelligent? Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't really pride myself in that. Mostly, I mean, like I'm 8 right now, so I'm not really like thinking about myself that often, like I said in the beginning.
I do that too. I think that's what I am often thinking, what are other people thinking? That,
Same. And then
yeah,
like I go through all these different scenarios in my head, then
yeah. I
started
know
thinking
you're a
this,
writer too.
thinking that, then like and then like can they like hear me thinking what they're thinking? Or like
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm. So mostly I do a lot of reading about how they think, which I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it's closer, I guess.
yeah. Closest we can get.
But I have known a lot of 8-year-olds in my life, a lot. I've been going to visit schools for like the last 30 years. And in fact, I just went to 2 of them last week. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're 8. Wow.
So how did you come up with the title?
Oh, that was kind of easy. First, after I wrote the story with a cat, it was called Snowball Sit, and it was about this, cat and this boy, Rufus. He gets the cat. It was going to be a picture book, you know, and then later, I got a call from a magazine editor at Scholastic, and he said, "We love your stories. Do you have any short ones, like we were just little magazines, kind of length stories?" And I said, well, yeah. I said, I don't really. And then he said, like, well, we'll pay you. And I went, oh, yeah, I have some lying around. And so when I hung up the phone, I went, what am I going to write about? And then I thought of Snowball Sit. I thought that would be a good, funny story because my editor told me that actually she thought that Rufus wasn't like 5 in a picture book, but he was more like, 9 or 10. So
Yeah.
then I changed it but before I published it, I thought, it would be funnier because I'm dealing with like 10-year-olds now, 9-year-olds. What's funnier than a cat that catches a frisbee? A guinea pig that catches a frisbee. And so then that was easy. Then I went, oh, guinea dog. Got it. Done.
Yeah. Did you come up with the title after you wrote the entire story, or did you
Yeah.
come up with it like before?
Well, I came up with it after I wrote the short story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, for the short story. For the short story. So I wrote the picture book without thinking it being guinea dog. But once I changed it to a guinea pig, instant. But that's not always the way it is. Titles can be really tough.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have the title first, sometimes I get it later, sometimes we change it, things like that.
Yeah, well, you're lucky with this one because when it comes like Snap, it's like it's meant to be, like another once told me.
Yeah, and I wrote two more books about Fido, but I was also thinking like in the future maybe I could write others like how about Guinea Duck or uh, or Guinea Deer or Guinea Diva. How about Guinea Diva? They all start with
Yeah.
D. I don't know why they all start with D, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I'll
that
let you know.
thing where you just want to cling to the alliteration.
See, alliteration, you're right. That's what I'm talking about.
So how did you come up with the characters? Is it Lauren?
Lorena,
Lorena.
it's
And
funny that you said that, though. You said Lauren. You said Lauren. And you know what? Lorena is an anagram of Lauren, which means, you know what an anagram is? It's when
yeah.
you mix the letters around. And you know that Rufus plays Scrabble,
Hmm.
and I play Scrabble, and I love anagrams. So Lauren was my editor at the magazine.
Oh,
And do you know who she is? She's Lauren Tarshish. Does that name mean anything to you?
well, I mean, I have seen that like in the back of some books.
Hmm?
Um,
I think she wrote
yeah.
the I Survived books.
Oh yeah, that's what I've heard it.
She
Yeah.
was my editor, and she's a friend too. And
Uh,
so
those books
I
are
just
really,
mixed the
really
letters up and
good.
aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
What about the character Murph?
Murph.
Mm.
Murph was based on a kid actually I knew in high school. There was this boy in high school, and he was just so wonderful. He was always smiling, and he was always really positive, and
Mhm.
uh, and so I wanted to be like his friend, but like everybody was his friend, and so I tried to get closer, and he would always be really nice to me, but I was never like his best friend, and so I based him on him. His name was Mike.
Mike Murph, Mike Murph, Murph and
Yeah,
Mike and Murph.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so how did you come up with the list of long, long reasons which you shouldn't have a dog? Because like I when I first read the book, and each and every time I do, I don't resist the urge, but I just come downstairs. I don't care if I just come down to my dad or my mom, and then I read the list to them, and they're like, "That's funny."
You're giving them all the reasons, you're giving it away. That was
Meanwhile,
easy
they whine,
because
they scratch, they bark.
all I had to do was think of my mother. After a whole childhood of like, please, can I have a dog? No, they bark, they whine, they eat poop. Can I
Uh,
say that? Yeah, yeah, all this. They eat dead things. um they
hilarious.
jump up on you and lick you with their tongue that tastes like dead things and poop. That when I go out to talk to schools, the kids always want me to read that list, and I have to admit I really love reading that list, but
Same.
they start getting really upset. They're like, but no, they don't. No, they don't. They're really great. And they get really defensive about it. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, are there any interesting or memorable experiences that happened in your life that you influenced into the book?
Um, I feel like I've said a lot of them, but with Murphy and Lorena but also Scrabble. I play Scrabble, and so he does that Scrabble thing in the book. You remember at the fair where he makes little things out of Scrabble tiles. Um, but also I'll have to say, like, I'm kind of a recycling nut. So in a way, I'm not
Oh,
dad.
sort of like Rufus's
Dad.
Dark.
But I'm not dad. I'm not. I swear. But um, that part of him I borrowed from myself because he works at home and I work at home, and I
Uh,
get a little worked up about the recycling, like who put the plastic in the paper, that kind of stuff. So it helps. I think sometimes if you have a character who isn't all that, like, maybe
yeah,
nice,
yeah.
kind, or if you give them some other, if you kind of like admit in yourself that you have some of those qualities, it can be a little easier to write them.
Mm, yeah, because
If you
it's like
make them like
really easy.
bad in your mind,
You don't
then
even do any like research. You just need to go like, okay, mind, what else do I know about myself?
that's right. Yeah. Well, I had to stretch because he didn't want a dog, and I really wanted a dog. And mom too. I mean, mom, I love mom. She's kind of like in the middle. She's the wise one. She's always saying things that I feel like you should listen to.
Mm,
You
like,
know,
yeah.
like thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Like lateral thinking. Yeah,
Yeah. So, how long did it take to write the book?
just
Like,
a few
just the
months.
writing.
But the truth is, like Subi, that's my cat. I got Subi when she was a kitten. And so she lived 13 years. And I got the idea for the story when she was a kitten that same year. And so she actually, sadly, she died at 13. But that was the same year that Guinea Dog came out. So it took 13 years from when I got the idea to when the book came out. But actually, it became first, like I said, went through phases
Yeah,
before it finally became a book and came out. And it's dedicated to her. If you look, you'll see that it's dedicated
yeah,
to
it says in
Subi.
the front,
Yeah, it says to
dedicated.
Subi and to Barry, who has helped with the story. He was
Yeah,
another
for
editor.
Subi and Barry.
Hmm.
Yeah, it says over there.
In fact, Barry's last name is Rust. So in the book, if you want an Easter egg, they live in Rustberry.
Yeah, I noticed that. Well,
His
I
name
mean,
is.
I didn't notice the last name, but like I noticed the name.
Mm. So Subi was alive, and I could open the book and say, "Look, I dedicated this to you," and she licked it.
Uh, well, I
So
mean, I think you should keep that copy safe. It's like the autographed copy by Subi. Can you tell us the process of writing the book? Like you said, there were phases. Could you like give like a maybe like really quick summary of each or something?
sure, sure. I mean, I think it's actually a really good example of like how my mind and how my book writing goes. I'm just living my life, and people often say like, "How do you get ideas?" And for me, it's always like they get me. It's like suddenly it's like, look, I have a cat and it acts like a dog. Bing! Like that. And so then I start thinking like, well, what would that be like? Would that be okay? What, I immediately start asking lots of questions. Like if I were a kid and I wanted a dog and I got a cat and I'd be really disappointed and then it acted like a dog, would it be like, would that be okay? Why not? What would my friends say? And all those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
So what I do is I kind of walk it around, sometimes physically, like I walk, I ride my bike.
Yeah.
Um, I always at that time I always used paper. I had a little index card, like an index card, but I had it in
Yeah.
a spiral notebook. I always had them everywhere. And then I'd pull it out, have a little pen stuck in it, writing notes down. I would actually act out scenes from the book,
Yeah.
and and so I would like have the dialogue going back and forth, and I would write it down as I was doing it. And so
Yeah.
I do all that first. I create the characters. I do character
This
biographies.
seems very much like a movie. I really think you should do it.
Yeah. I'm a pre-planner. I don't know about you and you. I know you're writing a book too, but I don't sit down to start the story until I kind of feel like I know the world that they live in and the people who are in it.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's the problem with me. Most of the time imagining, but when I actually like sit down and decide, hey, I'm gonna come up and go on to this and like write this, like plan and write this book,
Mm.
then that's when my ideas go, okay, guys, let's get out of here. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. No, when I go out and talk to kids too, I always try to encourage them a little bit, like just a little thinking before you start, just a little bit of thinking, and then they don't end up getting stuck. You
Yeah.
know, that's what happens with me. But
Yeah.
I do write down scenes that I like, even if I'm not ready to start, because I don't want to lose that. Like if I get inspired, I want to write it down. I never remember anything. Now I use my phone and I dictate into my phone. It's
Hmm.
great. Here's the great part. Like if I used to be able to be walking around, and I'd be talking to myself and people would look at me really funny, like, what are you doing, man? Totally talking to yourself. Now I put it in an AirPod, like and I walk down the street and if somebody comes by me while I'm talking to myself, I just pretend I'm on the phone. I
Yeah.
go, phone, just I'm on the phone.
Yeah. That's actually a clever way to do it. I've never thought of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Um, messages do you hope readers, especially really young readers, well, the type of readers you would want reading a book, what less message or theme do you hope they would learn from reading?
Oh, messages. Well, I really do try to avoid that because I really like to structure my books around questions. Like I like to get them questioning. But I
And
will
what
say
question do you think then?
in Guinea Dog, I will say there is one thing, and it's things are not what they seem. Things are hardly ever exactly what you think they are. They're usually something different. And so it's good to stay kind of like flexible and open-minded. So like you get a guinea pig and you're like, "Ugh." And then suddenly it's like, oh, he's catching frisbees. Yeah, he's running alongside my bike. You know,
Yeah.
right? I think it's
Gave
good
my
to
paradise to a one. Yay.
sometimes we want these things and we get them and then it's like, oh, eh. But sometimes you get something you weren't expecting. You're like, hey, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But maybe at first, you don't like it. So I that's probably a
The
little.
mystery of life.
I think that goes through all my books. I think all my books are really just about like kids who really want something and they're struggling to get it, and it may not even be what they wanted. It was something else, like friendship or something. Because in the end, isn't that what happened with Rufus? He just had a good companion. That's what he wanted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in truth, he didn't really want a dog. Uh, I feel like he just wanted to get a dog to live it up to Murphy.
Yeah, it's kind of peer pressure, right? Especially
Mhm.
like Dimitri, who kept pushing.
Huh, yeah.
Yeah.
That guy, he should be like, get out of here. What's your business?
I feel like that about him too.
Yeah.
You get to know Dimitri a little bit better in the second book.
Mm,
And I don't usually like portraying children as being kind of good or bad, but sometimes just going through like peer pressure can affect you, and maybe it was affecting him too much.
yeah,
You know,
way too much, I would say.
I would say, let's be candid. Yeah.
So if you travel back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I went to college the first time, and when they go in, they say, "What do you want to study? What's your major?" And so I wrote writing because that's what I wanted to do. And then for like the next 14, 13 years, I wrote anything I could think of. I wrote movies, I wrote movie reviews, I wrote essays, I wrote short stories. Um, I wrote all kinds of stuff, and I wasn't happy. And it wasn't until I wrote children's books after I started teaching, I decided, hey, you know what I did? I was sitting in a dentist office. I was waiting for the dentist, and they had a copy of James and the Giant Peach just sitting there on the table. So I picked it up, and within minutes, I was laughing. You know why? Because his parents were eaten by rhinoceroses.
Aren't rhinoceroses vegetarian?
That's exactly right. And that's exactly what I thought. I thought that's so funny because they're vegetarian. And I thought that's what I want to do. I want to do that. So if
Yeah.
I could go back,
Well, making people laugh, you certainly did that. I couldn't. I mean, when I heard the title of the second chapter,
what's
that
the
was
title of the second chapter?
it was orange-ish brown, pudgy, and had a spiky white mohawk. Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed that out. For one thing, I'm delighted you were laughing. That's often the question I ask when someone says like, "Oh, I read your book," and I go, "Did you laugh out loud?" Because that's what I want. And but the chapter titles are like another kind of little Easter egg, I suppose. I
Yeah.
challenged myself on this book. I said, the first sentence is going to be the chapter title. So it
Mhm.
has to be good. And it was really hard because every time I would start a new chapter, I go, okay, remember, it's got to be a good first sentence, which is a good thing to do anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And so, because I love
Like,
table of contents. I love table of contents. I like to read them. And so I actually have read the table of contents to groups of children just because I think each one is so good. And in a way, it tells like the whole story.
mhm.
If you want
I
to just read the table of contents, you're good.
I always do that, and then I start reading the book. Like that's like the first thing I flip through now that I think about it, and then I'm like, should I read this book? So, what piece of advice would you want to give to kids that are going to become authors, want to become authors, or just authors in general?
Okay. Well, one thing that everybody says is read everything you can find. Don't worry about what it is, if it's comic books or reference books or anything, travel books, whatever you want,
Essays.
poetry, anything, just read and read and read. And I do agree that that's true. But I think that one piece of advice I often give to kids, maybe they'll tell me what their story's about, and I'll say, oh, folk, who's your main character? And when they tell me, I'll ask them like a bunch of questions about them, like try to get to know them better, and then try to figure out what they want. And once you know what your character wants, then you'll know which way the story goes. Just keep heading toward what the character wants. It's like with Rufus. He wants that dog, goes for the dog, the dog, the dog. Keep going. There's going to be obstacles and obstacles, and people are going to try to stop you. You're going to have to learn new things. You're going to have to maybe leave home. Maybe you're going to have to like ride a dragon, learn from a wizard, whatever it is. You got to like keep going, but keep that goal in sight. Because then when they get it, it's like, oh, that feels so good. And the reader is just like,
Yeah.
oh, we all kind of like getting what we want, even if it's a surprise. And like Rufus doesn't get a dog, does he?
Well, he gets a guinea dog.
Exactly, which is maybe better.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? I can't really imagine going out and walking a guinea pig, but I would like it.
I think I would too, because da, 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 da.
With a little,
I mean, I don't even see how they're gonna get the leash that small.
I was walking and I saw this guy, he had a leash, right? And I was looking everywhere for the pet and I couldn't find it. And then I saw that the leash went into the ground, into a hole in the ground. And I said, what do you got there? And he said, oh, it's my ferret. He, he dug a hole. He does this all the time. And so I wrote a book about a ferret. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
So,
that's actually pretty funny.
isn't it funny? I just thought it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's just man like walking a hole.
Da, 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 da.
That's what it looked like. It's like, what are you walking there?
Oh my gosh. Mm.
Well, Ariel, I had so much fun. That was really a lot of fun. It was so nice to meet you.
One more question. So, what do you
Here
enjoy
I am
doing for
trying to
fun?
sign off. My animals are so fun. So I love spending time with them. And I really like the chickens. My chickens are really sweet, and sometimes they'll even like sit on my shoulder while I'm reading, in the warm months when I'm outside. They're surprisingly interesting and sweet to watch. So I like that. I mentioned I like word games and I like card games, things like that. I like spending time with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.